The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, NXT Review.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Wrestling to the Max's NXT Review for September 20th, 2017. And we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com. That's right, the place where you go find all your great wrestling content and a lot more. Hey, go make sure you subscribe at Wrestling to the Max as well. If you go do that, you'll get everything that we have to offer, like this review show, plus Raw, SmackDown Live, 205 Live, and everything else under our umbrella. We'll also give you our regular episodes of Wrestling to the Max, Part 1 and Part 2. Plus, guess what? We're also joined up with 411mania.com as well as lastwordonprowrestling.com. Both are great, awesome sites, and we want you to go check them out as well. And, of course, once again, they are big supporters of ours, and we appreciate it. Hey, and make sure you also think about going over to the W2M Network and subscribe, rate, and review there as well, because not only will you get this great show, but you'll also get shows like Wrestling Unwrapped and other great places to go find wrestling. So we want to make sure we give a shout-out to all those guys as well. I am Gary Vaughan, and, of course, your host tonight, like always, Mr. Paul Leazar.
Hey-o.
And, Paul, we've got an NXT that I am ready to talk about. We've got one special part of the show that I can't wait to dive into. But, of course, we'll go in order. But I'm ready to do this thing, man.
Yeah, let's just dive right in here, too, because they waste no time coming out. Johnny Gargano takes on Tino Sabatelli, who saw his tag team partner, Riddick Moss, fall to Johnny last week. And, naturally, Tino comes up much the same way. Really tries to focus on Johnny's shoulder. Doesn't really have anything to show for it, though, at the end, because he ends up tapping out to the Gargano escape.
This is a match that I think they kind of, in a way, mirrored that match we saw last week with Moss and Gargano. But I think Moss got a little bit more, if you ask me, right?
I agree.
I think it was an interesting factor compared to this. Sabatelli got some, and of course, he had his opportunities to look like, he belonged in the ring. But it was much more on this side of, hey, you're getting your chance, but Gargano's more dominant here. Compared to last week, I felt like Riddick Moss, he controlled almost the entire match. It was Gargano finding a way to win that match, and this is just a little different, which they needed to be different if they wanted us to really care, right? You do the same basic match 2 weeks in a row, I think people are like, oh, God, what are they doing? Mm-hmm. So it's nice they had that change of pace, but, I don't know what to really think about this. This is fine. We, of course, once again, we talked about this last week, Sabatelli, Moss, they're a tag team. We got to get a chance to know them, so why not put them against a guy like Gargano, who's not in a major feud right now? Mm-hmm. At least he's doing something that helps them. I'm okay with this. I don't know about you.
I'm fine with this, too, right? Moss and Sabatelli aren't really doing much right now. I think Gargano's they're playing the long game with Gargano, essentially. They're either waiting for Ciampa to come back or waiting for whatever they're doing, which we'll talk about later, to sort of heat up some more. So I think doing this with Gargano right now is fine, and I'm sure everybody wants him to be challenging for the NXT title right now, but I think doing this makes much more sense to me.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I really, think it's fine for Gargano, and I think that, he has a bright future. He's got lots of things heading his way. I think the interesting part about this, though, is about Sabatelli. It is about Moss. Those two guys, watching what they can do, kind of really, in a way, trying to find what direction that NXT wants to go with these guys. That's my biggest question. I know they're a tag team, but are we, going to, after this, hopefully get a chance to see them tag up and see what they can do? And not only that, how impressed are you with either guy? Are you impressed at all?
I don't know about you. Riddick didn't really do a lot for me last week. I think he showed he still has a lot of growing to do, a lot of learning. I think Tino has the better look. I think Tino's a little bit more crisper in the ring. I know he's been there a lot longer than Riddick has too, so that's probably where that's coming from, but I think Tino is the stronger half of this team, especially when it comes to promos too. He does most of the talking. I think he's pretty decent at it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he is. And, I think there's opportunities for both those guys. But, this may be a situation where they're going to kind of pick what they're better at. And, of course, go with it. Kind of like we saw. And I mentioned about Riddick Moss last week. He kind of reminded me of Big Kaz in a way, right? Mm-hmm. He's a bigger guy. He comes in kind of not really dominates per se. But, I mean, he comes in with that swag of, I'm the big guy. I'm going to do what I can do. I think that's kind of what he brings out when you compare him even to Sabatelli, who's not a small guy himself.
Yeah.
So I just kind of gathered that from him. I think Moss carries himself very well. But you're right. He's still kind of vanilla. He's still just kind of a creator wrestler at the moment. He got some moves under his belt, but he's not doing anything just to blow you away. And Sabatelli, he's got that charisma about him. But we're still learning. We're still trying to find our way with him, and same with him with us, right? So
yeah.
I like these guys. I'm ready to see what they can do after this whole thing.
I really hope they look much stronger as a tag team, because their single stuff so far hasn't really been too impressive. But
yeah,
there might be something on the horizon to fix that. We don't know if the Dusty Rhodes Classic is going to happen yet or not this year. So we go backstage. Roderick Strong meets with William Regal. Saying that he did what he set out to do. He beat Bobby Roode, and now he wants a championship match with Drew McIntyre, to which William Regal agrees with and says that will take place in 2 weeks, so get all excited for that, folks. You have commentary talking about the women's division. We get to see Asuka vacating the title again. And then that leads us into a Sonya Deville promo who says that Asuka left because she knew she would lose to her, and says that the title might as well already be around her waist. Which, I don't know about there, Sonya, but that takes us to Bianca Belair taking on Lacey Evans. I really enjoyed this. This is probably two of the brighter prospects within the Performance Center that they basically built up from the ground. Belair, we got a great chance to see what she could do in the Mae Young Classic if you haven't watched that yet. Lacey Evans, I think, did very well for herself there as well, and I think this was really good as well. They go back and forth, everything is solid. Bianca has just a ton going for her. I think Lacey does too. Bianca, I think, is the one WWE is much higher on right now.
And for good reason, right?
Yeah.
Watching the Mae Young Classic, I mean, and of course I listened to you, Harry, and of course Patrick talk about this in depth. And if you guys have not listened to it, make sure you go check out that Mae Young Classic review show that these guys did. It was amazing. If you're not yet in tune with the Mae Young Classic stuff, go watch it on the network and then listen to these guys do it. I mean, it's really cool. But you guys touched on Bianca Belair. Y'all kept talking about how she was one of the most outstanding performers, and I'm in agreement with you guys. And I think it proved itself once again in this. I think, seeing her there in NXT, seeing her when, Lacey Evans, who we've seen plenty of times on NXT, right? Been a regular mainstay on that show. And I think she held her own, and I think actually very impressive again. I think both these ladies have great opportunities ahead of them if they stay on the same pace. And, Belair actually may hop over Evans, though. I think that she may find her way getting to maybe a title shot sooner than Evans, because it just seems like comes with the charisma. Has that, of course, the hair whip thing that's going to get over with a crowd, I have a feeling. But especially with people that haven't seen her yet. So there's so much going for her, and I'm really happy for both of them. But I think Belair has something special, and we'll have to kind of continue on and wait it out. But I think there's a lot of positives coming out of this match. Even though it wasn't the best match in the world, I think at least they showed you some good things, and you see the momentum.
I think for two people who have not been wrestling very long, for them to come out and this match is only 4 minutes still too, and but they came out and made it look pretty effortless. I think Bianca is doing her stuff, Lacey gets her stuff, and they're basically out in that time. They both look great. I'm sure they've had a lot of practice with each other. They look very comfortable. Obviously, I'm sure working in the Performance Center a lot together. And I don't know. I think I need to see the other half of the equation. I do think highly of Bianca just as far as her ring work has gone so far, but we haven't seen any promos from them yet. I could absolutely see Bianca just maybe getting pushed to the main roster in the same way that Alexa Bliss did, right? Before it really looked like she was ready for the big time. They put her in that limelight and just see what happens.
It's funny you say that because you're right. We haven't heard, besides when they kind of did the interviews for the Mae Young Classic, you haven't really heard any promos from either. But you've heard in the Mae Young Classic a little about them, their lives, blah, blah, blah. So you're right. You've got that component we really don't know a lot about yet for them. I see it, though. I see it. That's why I was talking about it. I could definitely see her hopping over Evans for that whole chance to maybe get a title shot. But you're right. Maybe Belair does move to the main roster without even worrying about a title shot. But I still think right now, as it sits, even though it's a shorter time span, I could definitely see that hop, like you're saying, to somewhere greater at the moment. And I think part of it's that Street Fighter thing. Like I said, with the hair, I think it's something that's a weird thing, but I think that they're going to grab onto it. And I think once if Vince hasn't already seen it, Vince is going to be like, I want that. I want that now. So some good things coming out of that. I do want to touch on the videos, though. Of course, I want to talk about really quickly. You got a guy like Roderick Strong coming in and, of course, asking for the title shot and getting his opportunity from William Regal. The one thing I want to say about that really quickly is good job on them for doing the camera angle. They did the classic camera angle that WWE always does to make people look bigger and badder. That's what they did here for him. I mean, he looked like he was taller than William Regal. I mean, so unless he is, I don't think he was, though. Roderick's not the tallest guy in the world, so they kind of made him look. I don't know if you noticed that, Paul. I kind of noticed they did that little camera trick for us. So I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out. And the one thing that I do want to say is I'm with you. I think it's funny they are still pushing Sonya. They still want her to be something special. And that's great. That's fine. I guess especially for the fact that we don't have Shayna Baszler signed anywhere to WWE, right? She's not on the main roster. She's not on NXT. So right now, Sonya is the MMA girl. So they're going to continue pushing that. I'm really kind of curious about that, too. I know you're not really super enthralled with Sonya, and I'm not saying that I'm over the moon for her or anything, but I'm just kind of curious why they like her so much.
Well, we'll talk about Shayna Baszler on our main W2M episode because her contract situation has since changed.
Oh, see, I missed it. Okay, see, there you go. Breaking news for Gary. I have not paid attention.
And I did notice the production trick, but you're right, they do that often. I didn't think Roderick was really... I figured he'd be about the same height as William, so maybe they had him in lifts or something.
Well, here's the thing, okay? So the reason I brought that up at all, and I just kind of no-sold it because but anyway, Lars... that was my problem because I thought, man, they really should have made Lars look bigger versus what William Regal looked. And then all of a sudden I look at Roderick Strong and on the camera angle, I'm like, is he taller than William Regal? There's no way he's taller than William Regal. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
I've touching on Sonya and maybe talking more about the women's division here too, just in general. I don't know if Sonya is going to be what they want her to be. I think she has the look. I don't know if she has the in-ring ability yet. I think that's sort of where I'm not really connecting with her all that well. I do, however, feel like that they have all these acts in the women's division now that they've cultivated and have had some time to build up into something like a Nikki Cross, like a Ember Moon, like the Iconic Duo, like Sonya to a certain extent. And you could even argue maybe Bianca and Lacey to a certain extent as well. And maybe they're ready to go back to a women's division by committee instead of the headliner fighting off everybody else, And it's certainly, I think in the coming weeks we're going to see that. I think that's sort of where they are at.
See, but that makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very happy about that because of this reason. We can add more people to the picture, which means we get a variety, which also means that I'm not stuck with the same storyline for months and months, and then we get to change it over to something new for months and months. Now we're getting an opportunity to see maybe different acts, different people from different, walks of life contending for that NXT Women's title. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to make us care about so many more people. It's going to give us that diversity, I think, that a lot of people crave. Asuka was amazing, right? I mean, how could you not like Asuka, right? But the problem we had was, like you mentioned, we had 4 people in the picture, and one of them was the champ. That's not good enough. I think NXT is here for a reason, and it's to give us something different, to give us that variety. And so that was the only thing sometimes that kind of got bogged down just having the same rotation. I'm excited about something new. I'm excited about having new talent come and be in front of us, and for us to have maybe 3 or 4 people we're rooting for instead of just 1 or 2.
Right. I left out Ruby Riott too, but I mean, I think a lot of people are still sort of yearning for when the 4 Horsewomen were ruling the roost in NXT, and that was essentially still a 4-person outfit. You just had everything all tied up together. And maybe they're working towards that again. And to say that I didn't enjoy Asuka would just be flat out false, because Asuka herself is just walking difference, wherever she goes, just because of the way she wrestles and her unique look and all these other things. I think what they're going for is very much a actual fuller division than maybe we've ever seen in NXT since the Women's Revolution started.
Yeah. You're exactly right, and that's what I'm looking forward to. And it just seems so much different, right? Well, since Asuka's been with NXT, it just changed a little bit. They were so much more domineering with Asuka, and then, like I said, they kind of minimized that roster of women. Whereas when the 4 Horsewomen were in power, it seemed like they still had an influx. It didn't feel like it was just the 4, if you ask me. They were big parts of it. And yes, they kind of ruled the roost, but I still felt like we saw other people involved besides just them. So, and nonetheless, I think that there's a bright future right now for this division.
I absolutely agree with you entirely on that. So, let's move along to this, which I'm sort of interested to get your thoughts on, because Aleister Black is going to speak for the first time here. He's got on a cool suit. I think maybe talks differently than if you've never heard him do a promo before, very unexpectedly than what you might be, expecting. Just because I think people are sort of like Lashley, right? Whenever Lashley talks, he doesn't have a voice that matches the persona. I think Aleister kind of has that a little bit too, but the way he handles himself and the way he speaks, despite his voice, I think is very conducive to what he wants to accomplish as far as this gimmick goes. And especially when he talks about how far he's traveled, everything he's done in the business. He's been wrestling for 15 years. He's traveled the world. He's experienced so many things. And they've manifested themselves as these scars on his skin and tattoos, like the heart on his throat or the demon on his back and everything else in between. And this brings out the Velveteen Dream, who says that Aleister is sort of blinded by the light that he has created since he has been, in the darkness for so long. And the Dream doesn't really see what everybody else is seeing. He's only just seeing lies written across Aleister Black, and says that Aleister is really just afraid of him and afraid to be what he is. And finally, Aleister has enough of what he's saying, and Black masses the microphone out of his hand, which is just really cool looking, and does his little meditative pose, and then the Velveteen Dream gets on all fours and looks like he might kiss him before backing away. This actually got the crowd pretty hot. I'm more interested to hear what you have to think about all this, though.
Definitely wasn't expecting the Velveteen Dream. That's the honest truth. And do I like this? I can't say that I do. Okay, so I'm going to start on the Velveteen Dream stuff, and then I'll get on to talking about what I really care about. The reason I'm not sold on the Velveteen Dream thing is because Aleister Black, to me, feels like a big deal. The Velveteen Dream does not. In a massive way, he does not feel like a big deal to me. And that is a yin and yang I don't really care for, because why am I seeing the Velveteen Dream in here to basically get killed? Do you understand where I'm coming from? I feel like we're watching Asuka in the ring, and the next thing you know, they send in a woman. I'm trying to think of a star. They send out, I don't know. I hate picking on her, but maybe Liv Morgan. She doesn't have a shot. Like, it's given. There's no way, right? Why are they even doing this? That's kind of why I feel about the Velveteen Dream. Does it help him? Maybe. Maybe it kind of furthers that character. Like you said, it kind of looked like he was in a kick kiss, Aleister Black, whatever. I just don't know. I'm a little bit torn on if I should like this. I'm leaning more on the side of this didn't care, but I kind of hated it in a way. So that's my opinion about that. Aleister Black, I understand what he's coming from and all the things you just explained about the tattoos and all that. Being very soft-spoken, you're right. Bobby Lashley was that guy. Everybody expected a big, deep voice out of Bobby Lashley, and it ended up being a little voice. Mm-hmm. And that turned a lot of fans off. It made people kind of look at him differently, and that's the way it works. I don't know. Here's my problem. I've always been like this with bigger guys or mysterious people. I would rather them not talk. That's just me. I just don't need to hear them talk because their persona speaks for itself. That's the way I've always felt. I always looked at, Luke Harper as a guy that just never needed to talk. He's creepy looking. If I stood outside my car door and then closed it and looked out the window and saw his face, I'd be screaming because, he's menacing. He's kind of terrifying. I don't need to hear him talk. And I think the same way for Aleister Black. Now, I've never heard him when he was Tommy End on the Indies. I've never heard his speeches, anything that he kind of came out with, some of the cryptic stuff I'm sure he shared on the indie circuit. I may be more impressed with that stuff. The stuff here is not bad. I just don't know what I'm supposed to get out of it. That's my problem. And that's a big deal for me because I love Aleister Black. I think a lot of the guy. What am I supposed to get out of him kind of talking about his story? Am I supposed to be sympathetic? I don't want to be sympathetic towards the guy. I want to be scared of the guy.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. And I don't think you're going to get a babyface in this day and age in the WWE who's out to try to scare you, unfortunately, because that's where Aleister very much is right now, especially after this. I do, however, supposed to think that we're supposed to believe that he is a satanic version of the Fonz.
Oh, God. Hey, worship Satan.
Yes. And that he has some otherworldly aura about him, but he's cool, right? He does all these neat things. He spin kicked a microphone out of the man's hands, for God's sakes, instead of just slapping it like a normal human being would. And, he's got all these cool tattoos, and some of them are, what's the word I'm looking for? Allude to bigger things than just cool tattoo stories, right? I think the dream, what they're going for, is sort of the same vein that they've presented Goldust, in that he's supposed to just be different to throw you off, right? And that's the feeling I got from him. I don't know if I was necessarily sold on this. I do, however, think this is them throwing him into the deep end against a big star to see what he has, right? Because we've only seen him in squash matches. We haven't got to see him really go full bore in a match that matters and really see if they can, pull something off great. And I know Aleister can. I've seen it many times. I don't know if the Dream can, and I think that's sort of where WWE's at.
Yeah, and I kind of look at this as a situation where I still have yet to see anything from the Velveteen Dream that makes me want to be excited or giving him any props. And I hate to say it that way because I want his dream to come true. I want this guy to be able to have his opportunity to basically be a WWE superstar. It's just, I just don't like the gimmick. I want him to go back to being Patrick Clark. I just am not thrilled about it. I don't know if I will ever be happy with it. Mm-hmm. Aleister Black on the other side is I'm not going to say the word unimpressed. I'm not unimpressed with him. I'm trying to think of the right vocabulary. I want to see him come out and not talk about his life, where he's been. I don't need him to tell me about his tattoos. I just want to see him. I want to think that this guy is a mysterious person, but at the same time, if they want to have him talk, which they will, you don't get away with it these days in the WWE. You have to talk. Mm-hmm. I think what we could get from that is a Clint Eastwood type guy if he wants to play it that route, and I would be completely happy with that. So if he's a man of few words, if he's a guy that basically says his piece very shortly in a very low tone, he doesn't have to have a deep voice. He doesn't have to have a scary voice. He just has to have a voice that gets down to business. And I think that would be right along with his character because he's got that satanic thing going on. He's mysterious. All that. I don't know if you agree with that, Paul, but that's kind of the way I would love to see him go. Be more of a Clint Eastwood type of guy.
I'm really curious if maybe what they did with Bray Wyatt and his, I don't want to say lack of success, but he certainly hasn't panned out, I think, the way WWE wanted to, and they only have themselves to blame. But I wonder if they look at that and they don't want to repeat that with Aleister here, because that the allegory is certainly there as far as demonic, otherworldly, bad juju, whatever term you want to use. There's something wrong with the guy, right? And they present that to you, I think, in just basically any way they can, with the way they present his name whenever he comes out to basically the way he comes to the ring. And I wonder if this was almost a step to see if you could connect with him on that level that's not based around that, because they don't want him to have to rely on that like that Bray Wyatt sort of has.
That's a good point. That really is a good point. And I don't know yet. I mean, this is one sample. Mm-hmm. So if they got a lot out of it, good for them. Myself, I didn't get enough. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And right now, I don't know if I even like it. What I do know, though, is, once again, you're right. Bray Wyatt has become something that, well, let's be honest, is completely different than when he started. We're not happy with it. I don't know if we ever will be, because it's just not the way we ever liked seeing him. What the cool thing about this situation is Aleister Black, once again, doesn't have to be like Bray. Doesn't have to speak for 15 minutes about the stars and the moon and how, the walls will come crumbling down on you. He doesn't have to say all that. All he has to say is a few things, even if it is towards that satanic or that dark realm. He just has to say a few things and be done with it, and then just show you what he is. And I think that would work perfectly. That's not WWE style, though, so I'm just throwing my hopes and dreams out there. You're right, though. This is more of an experience thing to see what he can do, to see if they like it, they don't like it. But, if I was booking this segment, just let's talk about this segment really quickly. If I was booking this segment, the way I would have done it is once he was, not wanting to hear what the Velveteen Dream had to say and he did the black mass, I would have loved the lights to shutter down and just to have a single light, kind of like Bray, but not the same, a single light on Aleister Black, as if, well, he controls the room, he controls everything, he's got that spiritual side about him. I think that would have been kind of cool. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was going to be something more, obviously, to what he's going to say, like those scars or whatever. There's going to be more to that, I think, down the road. Right now, though, you have somebody who, in the Dream, who doesn't believe in anything that he's saying. Honestly, the Velveteen Dream didn't even say much. He could have just gotten a few words out before Aleister was done hearing it and spin kicked him in the face. I would have been fine with that, too.
Who wouldn't be, right? I mean, that would be beautiful. The one thing that could come out of this, right, Paul, is the Velveteen Dream is going to talk, and he's going to talk, and he's going to talk, and he's going to talk. Aleister Black has things to say. He could finish that speech and do it and basically say, look, you didn't let me finish, but let me tell you what these scars are about. And then go on and talk about maybe some of those darker things if we are going to go that route. I don't know how much WWE is going to go that route, but he can get into them then. And maybe I'll change my mind completely on this whole thing.
Yeah. Like I said, as a first segment, I think we just got to give some time to breathe. But let's move on. We have Lars Sullivan and Noah Jose. We get a video package of everything they've gone through as their match is coming up next. But first we get this video package from Dakota Kai, who talks about basically how she might look the part of somebody who you wouldn't expect to go out there and kick somebody's face and watch it implode inside into their head and all that good stuff. But she is, and that's what she's going to do, and she's going to do everything it takes to make sure she becomes the next NXT Women's Champion. Dakota Kai, Evie, whatever you want to call her, she's a wonderful talent. If you only seen her in the Mae Young Classic, I still think you got a pretty solid picture of her. If you haven't, her work in Shimmer and basically everywhere else is just absolutely stellar. I'm a huge fan of hers. I really hope she becomes a big player in the NXT Women's Division and WWE in general. She's just a terrific talent. I can't wait to see her actually show up in NXT and start getting involved in all the pictures and everything.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think it's going to be really cool to see that transition from the Mae Young Classic to a full-time NXT schedule and seeing how they present her and, put her in this picture, right? Because we've got a lot of new talent. Let's see how they all shake out. I think she'll definitely do well. And the better competition that we're getting now means so much more. I think it's going to mean so much better matches, so much better variety. All spells good things.
I agree. And then we get to this match with Lars Sullivan and No Way Jose, where Lars just absolutely annihilates No Way Jose, who basically this goes down like the segment they have last week. No Way Jose gets in a few moves. They appear a little bit effective. It's just not enough. Lars just dominates him with a big shoulder tackle and hits a flying headbutt, which I was not expecting anybody to ever do again, but here comes a giant-ass man off the top rope doing it, and then he has that big slam to finally put him away.
A little surprised to see that move as well, Paul. I thought that was never going to be done again. I really felt that way. Heck, I'll be honest with you. I figure for probably 25 years we wouldn't see the crossface ever again. But we got that sooner than I expected too. So who knows what they're doing. Maybe they found ways to get around that. Maybe they have a different philosophy. But once again, a little surprised. All that matters to me, though, is Lars looks great in this match. I think No Way Jose was a great opponent for him, only because of the fact you saw that No Way Jose is a big fan favorite. You got a chance to see someone actually kind of knock Lars around a little bit, and maybe not a lot because he was kind of dominated, but at least you got a chance to see Lars take on someone who is of value, who people actually are invested in, and has a pretty good offensive skill set. So really, really happy with this. I think Lars came out looking like $1 million. I still say No Way Jose looks good as well, even though he wasn't really particularly, the guy with a lot of the offense here. So I still am in favor of what they're doing with Lars. I think that they're on the right track, and I'm really curious to see exactly where they're going with him. But at the moment, I think definitely an awesome job, and he's still a scary mofo, if you ask me.
Him roaring after he won the match might have been the most frightening thing I've ever seen from him since he's shown up on our NXT TV screens. Just, the man looks like a Neanderthal who's been time displaced and is very angry about it. So
yeah, you're not wrong on that. I mean, he honestly looks like he's straight out of a comic book, right?
Yeah,
out of one of the biggest villains in the comic book history or something like that. He has that look about him. If you're standing behind him at Walgreens and he turns around after buying his stuff, you're like, oh God,
yeah.
He just looks like a menace. Even though he could be the nicest guy, he probably goes home and reads poetry.
God, we don't need another big man reading poetry like Heidenreich did. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point, Paul.
Speaking of weird, in 2017, in a WWE-themed show, you have Ring of Honor stalwarts Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly taking on the UK's maybe most popular tag team at Mustache Mountain inside a WWE ring. And they get 10 minutes, and it's damn good, unsurprisingly, and my brain just didn't know how to comprehend not only seeing both these teams in the ring, but watching Adam Cole get on the apron and do his pose and not having streamers fly at him. Like, it's not real yet, Gary.
I'm right there with you. It does definitely feel odd the way that this is working out, because this is not a WWE match. This is something you see on the indies or in a Ring of Honor. This is really cool. This is what excites you, because all the new talent that we heard about for a long time coming is finally here, and they're finally in the ring together, and we're seeing these amazing matches. And, we're going to get a chance to see more. And not that this was over the top, but I still thought this was a very well done match. You could tell that, you had the quality tag teams invested and just really doing their job in this match. And I was really happy to see that. Red Dragon, I'm so happy they're together again. I was kind of worried they were going to separate those guys, I'm glad they're together. And, seeing what they're doing here, I mean, I want to see more already. I'm ready to see it. I can't wait to see Adam Cole actually get in the ring and do some things himself as well. But yeah, I mean, this was a great main event, man. I can't lie. I really enjoyed seeing these teams work it out. And, I can't say much more, but I mean, it was thrilling to see it. But, once again, I think we've got bigger and better stuff in the future than this.
Right. So we have Cole finally have enough of his boys getting their tail kicked by Mustache Mountain. He goes and grabs Bate off the apron, takes him to the floor, and destroys him with a super kick, which allows Red Dragon to capitalize on Seven, who they just basically destroy with a total elimination. Which I don't know if I'm okay with them getting rid of Chasing the Dragon, but I'm always a fan of total elimination. So, Red Dragon do get the win here. They're in the ring celebrating together when Drew McIntyre comes out. He's still pissed off from their attack on him from TakeOver. He heads to the ring and they decide to bail through the crowd like they have been. However, Sanity show up. They appear from behind them. The Undisputed Era turn around, and we have ourselves a big old brawl. Some of them make their way back into the ring to where McIntyre can attack them. However, they still manage to escape. And this very, very much paints a picture like it's these guys versus NXT. And with some of the signings we know they have, plus some of the guys on the roster, this could turn into a huge angle going into next year. And not only, I mean, obviously the rest of this year for sure, but going into next year too. It could really heat up.
I can't tell you how much I'm excited about this. Mm-hmm. This is something that's going to be really awesome if it does go that route, and it works out the right way, because some of the talent that we have yet to be seen is super great, right? I mean, these are some people that I think we're all going to be thrilled about seeing when they finally show up, and they don't call it Ring of Honor, but Ring of Honor versus NXT is what I like to call it, even though it's not the name. I think it's special. I think it means something. And I'm sure, the people over at Ring of Honor aren't thrilled about it, but I'm happy about it.
I mean, they've said on multiple occasions, at least the higher-ups over there, they're kind of happy with their spot just because, you get to see all these guys that go on and succeed on a huge stage, and it's not like Ring of Honor small potatoes anymore. So, you're not going to have to wait long to see Adam Cole wrestle Gary. He's going to be on the show next week. And there's a lot more ahead of us for sure. And I cannot wait to talk about it.
Yeah, same here. And I definitely don't want to give anything away myself when it comes to some of those other signees. But we've talked about them plenty of times. But, I'm just ready for, when they pop up on my screen and I'm not expecting it, I'm telling you, I'm going to be thrilled. So, but yeah, I mean, there you go. And I think Sanity, doing their thing here, it makes all the sense in the world, right? Sanity's been biding their time. They've been wanting to get some payback as well. So it's kind of funny to see Sanity as the baby face here in a way. Yes. I don't know how you could call them baby faces, but here they are. So this is an interesting dynamic, and this is what you have when you have feuding groups and, people having to get along. And if, you guys are watching Impact Wrestling, that's happening over there on that show with a few guys as well. So this is a classic wrestling thing, and I love it when it happens, to be honest with you. So we're getting in here. Yeah, that's our NXT, Paul. And we got some big things happening next week, of course, on this show, and we'll be looking forward to that. But until next time, we're going to be getting out of here. And just to remind you really quickly here, W2Mnet.com. Go check it out. Also go subscribe, rate, and review at Wrestling to the Max. You'll get all of our great shows. Of course, our regular episodes of Wrestling to the Max will be on there as well, which you'll really enjoy, because tonight we'll be getting into some of that big news. And of course, like Paul alluded to, we'll have some Shayna Baszler to talk on tonight's episode. So make sure you go check that out. That'll be, of course, episode 265, part 2. And make sure you go search out FormulaOneMania.com as well as LastWordOnProWrestling.com. Both sites are really great. Got wrestling and, of course, a lot more of the great stuff on those sites, along with W2Mnet.com. And, basically, we appreciate you joining us once again, and we will catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.